thank you both for taking time out. Obviously, we're here to have a chat about Grind, which is screening at South by Southwest. It's this really fun, dark anthology horror that's kind of taking aim at, the gig economy. What was it about, this project, the stories, because obviously it's an anthology, so there's several different stories. What was it about the overall film and your characters and those stories that made you both want to get involved?
Ooh. I think that, in the grind segment, what was fun about Todd is how much he just reminded me of the annoying, like, trusting the company manager that you had, where you're like, look, we need to stick together. Like, they don't trust us, and kind of getting to play with that arc and just all the elements of it was very fun and timely, and I think it just has that staying power because I think we're dealing with so many just terrible corporations taking advantage of like the working class. Like honestly, if this movie ever fell out of time, I'd be ecstatic. And hopefully it's not because it's like a worse robot overlord. It's like, what do you mean about corporeal bosses? Corporeal is the word I was trying to say. You can strike that on the record.
The evil corporeal corporation. And for me, I was offered the part. I didn't know the filmmakers. I read the script, and you get a script. It's an independent film. You're like, well, we'll see. Sometimes, usually, you can tell within a couple pages if it's interesting or not. And this was very interesting right away. And I just love the writing. It's a horror movie, but it's kind of satirical, so it's really funny, and it's about something. It's about this gap between these sort of exploited workers and, like you say, the gig economy, and these sort of corporate overlords who don't care about those people. And that's a very relatable theme, and it's in the great tradition of the horror genre, sort of uh, addressing stuff that's going on in the culture at the time, not explicitly, but sort of, thematically. And so all those elements just really appeal to me.
I think what the film does so well is it does balance that tone between, the darkness, the absurdity, and the humor. As actors, kind of how do you, go about, making sure that, you are also keeping that balance between tones and not going, too far one way over the other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, you sort of that's a thing that's really important, I think, in film or theater. Any sort of storytelling is tone. That's such an important part of something. And I think the tone was very clear in the script. And then when I showed up, Ed directed this sequence I was in. There's different directors, Ed Doherty, but there was an understanding that yes, it's essentially a sort of black comedy, but every actor knows that if you more or less play it straight, it's going to be even funnier.
Yes.
You don't have to gild the lilies so much. You're aware that there's a certain style of comedy, but you don't need to lean into it that heavily. If you just old actor cliches, just play the intention of the character and what the situation is, the comedy will sort of take care of itself because it was very much there in the writing and sort of just speaking these words gives you a sense that this is a slightly heightened satirical world. And that's also really fun to do. It's fun to play a style. And I think the film pulls that off very successfully, finding that balance. Uh,
Oh yeah. And I think, just to like hit what you're saying again, I think that is true, right? Especially with everything that the, film is kind of like, making fun of and kind of touching on and its relevance. I think, yeah, you having it played completely straight, having it be played above board and honest instead of like these goofy characters makes it land like so perfectly.
and it's a movie. You want to have some emotional connection with these people while you're sitting there for a couple hours. And it's also a little more difficult because it's an anthology film and all this the characters are all connected in some way, but you get to know people in this segment, then you get to know the people in this segment, and the people in this segment, and they only each of those segments is only about 20 minutes or so. So to try to find the human being inside these characters is really important. And again, it just makes it more relatable and funnier if they seem like recognizable people than just sort of sketch comedy characters or something. You know? Not that
Yeah.
there's anything wrong with sketch comedy, by the way, just apples and oranges.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as much as this is, a horror comedy, we've kind of, discussed it already to a degree, but the film is also making, this astute commentary on, the working world and, corporations and everything. Are you hopeful that as fun as this film is, are you hopeful that maybe this film might open people's eyes a little bit, even if it's just to the point of they might be a bit more polite and friendly to their, to their server or their Uber driver next time?
That would be a good thing if it had that effect.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I was gonna mute it.
It's fine. It's fine. But because I think it is, all of the segments, they're all obviously dealing with different, there's a coffee house, there's an office job, there's a delivery driver in that, but it's all so relatable. Even if you've never worked in that industry, I think that, this film does such a good job at capturing what it's like to work like that. And like I say, I've never been like an Uber Eats sort of driver, and that's one of the segments that Brea directed is all to do with that. But now I'm going to be a lot nicer, next time I get my food delivered because, they are just grafting for nothing, it seems.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
think, so many people uh, can relate to the workers in this. The main characters in this are baristas, warehouse workers, delivery drivers, low-level employees, and it's one of the reasons Office Space was not a
Mm.
kind of flopped when it came out because no one knew what it was and didn't pay attention to it. Now it's like one of the most beloved American movies. Everyone knows it and quotes it because everyone understands, no matter what job you've had, everyone relates to those characters and that situation. And I think this is a similar thing where not so much people's eyes opening as just going, oh, yeah, I've been there. You know?
Definitely. And yeah, the film is obviously, as I said at the start, it's screening at South by Southwest. But for those people that can't be at the festival, why should they be adding Grind to their watch list? Why should they be looking for this when it plays wherever they are?
I think because it's extremely fresh and funny, relevant, and has like everything you want out of a horror movie. Like funny moments, great kills, great scary jump out your seat moments. So yeah,
Yeah, and there's also just some great old school filmmaking.
yeah,
There's lots of practical effects. Uh,
yes,
there are genuinely there's some puppetry. There's even a moment that's sort of an homage to old Hollywood musicals. So there's a lot of bang for your buck in the
yeah.
movie. Plus a little stealth social commentary.
Exactly. A little bit of, well, a lot of sugar with the medicine.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
the way that these things work. Well, thank you both so much for your time and best of luck with the screening at South by.
Thank you very much.